Takeover of health care,
Thank you,
the Green New Deal, all government control. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
Let's talk about respecting the American people. You respect the American people when you tell them the truth.
Now on a special edition of the KPIX 5 News at 10 and streaming on CBSN Bay Area. Sparks fly at tonight's vice presidential debate. Thank you for joining us. I'm Elizabeth Cook.
And I'm Ken Bastida. It was the only opportunity for voters to see the vice presidential candidates face off before Election Day. Natalie Brand reports from Salt Lake City.
Liz and Ken, both Senator Harris and Vice President Pence are known as skilled debaters. Tonight, they were asked very direct questions, but they repeatedly deflected and instead pivoted to their preferred campaign talking points. With new COVID-19 protections in place, the coronavirus remained front and center as Vice President Mike Pence and Senator Kamala Harris squared off in Utah.
The American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration.
From the very first day, President Donald Trump has put the health of America first.
Senator Harris, a former prosecutor, went after the Trump administration's pandemic response.
Whatever the vice president is claiming the administration has done, clearly it hasn't worked. When you're looking at over 210,000 dead bodies.
Vice President Pence, the leader of the coronavirus task force, defended it.
President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health.
After the chaotic presidential debate last week, the candidates tried to stay on message, but often avoided answering questions from moderator Susan Page.
Well, Susan, thank you, although I would like to go back.
I think we need to move on to the issue.
Well, thank you, but I would like to go back.
What would you want California to do? Would you want your home state to enact no restrictions on access to abortion?
Joe Biden and I are both people of faith, and it's insulting to suggest that we would knock anyone for their faith.
At one point, a fly landed on Vice President Pence's head as he discussed police reform.
President Trump and I stand with you.
With President Trump's COVID-19 diagnosis and both the president and Joe Biden in their 70s, this debate gave voters a chance to see how these candidates might handle the presidency if ever called upon.
You know, Joe and I were raised in a very similar way. We were raised with values that are about hard work.
The vice president and senator also sharply disagreed over the push to confirm Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett before Election Day.
We hope she gets a fair hearing. And we particularly hope that we don't see the kind of attacks on her Christian faith that we saw before.
Let the American people fill that seat in the White House, and then we'll fill that seat on the United States Supreme Court.
The second presidential debate is scheduled to take place next week in the battleground state of Florida. President Trump has indicated he wants to debate next Thursday in Miami, but Joe Biden has told reporters he'd base it on what the doctors have to say and medical advisors to the Commission on Presidential Debates. Organizers will now have to work and focus on this issue with just about a week to figure out all of the details. In Salt Lake City, I'm Natalie Brand, KPIX 5.
I spoke with political analyst Melissa Caen tonight on a debate that was far more civil than the presidential debate, but still heated at times. And this is what she said when I asked her who won.
They sort of both won in a sense because their job as vice presidential candidates is really to not embarrass the top of the ticket. And in that regard, they both hit it out of the park. They both held their ground. They both defended their presidential candidates aptly and competently and didn't embarrass themselves or their presidential candidates. And so for that, they're each going home saying that was a win.
Do you think they changed anybody's mind tonight? Do you think that anybody's going to flip their vote based on what Mike Pence or Kamala Harris had to say?
Well, I think that it could have, but based on the performances that they both gave tonight, they each were perfectly competent. They were each, did a good job on behalf of their candidates, on behalf of their parties, on behalf of themselves. And I don't think either of them did any damage to their parties potential. So if you're an undecided voter going into this debate, you're probably an undecided voter coming out of this debate. Neither candidate gave you a reason to vote against them. And that's really the decision that a lot of undecided voters are trying to make right now.
And that there weren't any major gaffes on either side or any real, knockout punches from either side.
That's true. I mean, each candidate both gave good, sort of aggressive, more offensive statements, and they also absorbed the other side pretty well. So, for example, Kamala Harris, of course, a former prosecutor, as we know, went after Mike Pence on a number of issues with the Trump administration, and he sort of, in his very calm way that he does project, sort of took those comments in and sort of calmly responded, and neither side was able to get the other side really riled.
Outside of the fly that landed on the vice president's head, and it was particularly notable because his hair is white, something a lot of us have to deal with later in life. But that was almost like a distraction that was kind of like breaking the ice. It was kind of funny.
Well, it was a good moment of levity because there really wasn't much levity in the debate itself. These candidates were, if nothing else, very, very serious about what they were doing in that moment. And so when there was even something that was even just a little funny, it just became way bigger.
The next presidential debate is set for October 15th. The president says that he wants to attend. Joe Biden says the debate should be canceled, though, if Trump still has coronavirus.
Well, Kamala Harris's roots not only run deep here in the Bay Area, she has strong ties to a sisterhood at Howard University. KPIX 5's Andria Borba spoke to her former sorority sisters, rallying behind her.
Tonight on the debate stage, California Senator Kamala Harris had the backing of women who call her sister, even though they do not share blood.
30 million people.
On the debate stage in Salt Lake City tonight, California Senator Kamala Harris, Oakland native and member of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, had an army of women virtually behind her. This is a photo of members of all four historically black sororities doing what they call the stroll to the polls.
It's really wonderful to see that kind of solidarity and that kind of statement. That makes such a statement to say, hey, there are a lot of us out here and we are all going to the polls.
Behind that photo, there is a voting bloc 1 million strong. Betty Booker is a biotech scientist and also a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha. She says seeing Harris on stage is something she won't forget.
People are just excited to have representation, and also representation that, reflects us and also reflects a lot of our ideals and a lot of our morals.
Another member of AKA is retired KPIX 5 anchor Barbara Rogers, who grew up in the segregated South. She never thought she'd see an African-American woman nominated to the vice presidency.
The conditioning is so strong that we aren't capable. And what this says is we are quite capable and have been all along. They just took a long time to notice it.
Dr. Glenda Newell Harris, an AKA, was impressed with Senator Harris's performance.
She addressed all the major issues. She addressed all of the issues that needed to be fact-checked. She represented us as people. She was very clear that she is a person representing the people.
For AKA member Johari Leaks, the senator displayed qualities during the debate that she wants for her daughter.
Appreciate, again, her perseverance, her strength, her drive.
In San Francisco, Andria Borba, KPIX 5.
We asked the chairman of the San Francisco Republican Party, John Dennis, to weigh in on the debate. He said one of Harris's major shortcomings was quite apparent tonight.
So I thought she actually did a pretty good job, holding Mike Pence's feet to the fire. But I think when it came to foreign policy, particularly Middle Eastern foreign policy, I think that it was pretty evident that Kamala Harris's way in over her head, and she just didn't really have much to respond to there.